Hey, welcome back everyone here to Veteran Nation on the New Right Network. And thank you for joining us today. Remember, as always, you can join us at www.nrnplus.com/VN. If you like the show, you can like us, you can subscribe to us. It's $79.95 for the year, $9.95 for the month. So if you do join by the month, you save yourself a little bit of money. Or if you join for the year, you save yourself a little bit of money. But you can always join us on our group on Facebook. You can always follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook as well. And with today's show, I've got two guests, which we haven't had two guests for a while, and they're both very interesting. I've got PolitickRick, and I've also got Mallory Millet. And we'll start off with PolitickRick. Rick, can you talk a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Well, I lead a group called Giant Slayers, and the motivation behind it is that we're having a little bit of a problem in the United States today, and somebody needs to push back and address this. So what I'm trying to do is to teach conservatives to be right-wing activists. You know, the left does this just naturally. You know, and really part of the reason they're kicking our ass right now is because they're so good at it and we have no capability at all. We need to join together and get serious about this. Remember the Tea Party back in 2010? Absolutely. We need to be that all over again. The Tea Party is a thing of the past. We need a new movement in the future. And I'm hoping that I can help lead that movement. So then I got involved in you know, what are the goals of Giant Slayers? You know, what should we be doing? And I decided that take a look at what's happening in our country today. We need to address those issues that caused this problem to put us in this state today. And part of that was understanding, well, how did this happen? You know, I got very interested in it and done just months and months of research on it. And then I was lucky enough to meet Mallory Millet, who is just a fascinating woman. I'll tell you, her experience, it's going to blow you away when we get to that part of it. But what we've got is the intersection of cultural Marxism and the feminist movement. And that's where Mallory really adds a lot. And it's brought us to a point where, you know, our country is becoming dysfunctional and fast. We're in, you know, attributes or effects of it that we see is this craziness going on with critical theory. And maybe if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then at the end, maybe we can talk about, well, how do we fix it? What do we do? Absolutely. But it all started, people don't know this story. They don't know how this happened. You know, when we were growing up, if you brought up that the communists were trying to take over, people would say, they would always say this, oh, come on, Rick, that's conspiracy theory. That can't happen in the United States. Well, here we are. Now we got proof it can happen in the United States. So how did it happen? You know, a long time ago, in about 1933, when Hitler was trying to gain power in Germany, well, the communists were too. And he saw them as a threat, so he kicked them out of Germany. And the intelligentsia, you know, the academic elites, they left and went to the United States. We took them in with open arms. We're such fools, you know, a lot of the time.
Really?
And accepted them at Columbia University. They were referred to as the Frankfurt School. And individuals like Herbert Marcuse is the leader of this band of crazies, really. Since 1933, they've been teaching and training something they call critical theory. And what critical theory does is it says everything is just a social construct. It doesn't have to be that way. We can change it. So for instance, let me give you an example. They're saying there's 72 genders. Right. And our joke is, right, well, follow the science. They actually, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman right across the hall from her, put up a LGBTQ flag, apparently, or transgender flag.
Mm-hmm.
So Marjorie put up a sign that said that, there's only two genders, male, female, follow the science. I love that woman. But that's the way you deal with Marxists. You don't, tippy toe around it. They don't. You got to go straight at them, because their view of the world is the ends justify the means. They will do literally anything to achieve goals. They have no morals when it comes to them, to that. So for instance, the 72 genders though, think about this for a minute. Why 72 genders, and who would even bring up this craziness? Well, at the core of the Marxist movement, there was a gentleman named Antonio Gramsci, and he was in Italy at the same time that they were kicking the Frankfurt School, out of Germany. Down in Italy, they had the same problem. They didn't want Gramsci and the communists taking over, so Mussolini put him in jail. And he sat and he wrote and he wrote and he wrote. I got a book of all of his writings while he was in jail. But the left, they look at him like he's like a god. He's like their Bible. And they refer to the 5 pillars of Gramsci, and 2 of the main pillars. Let me read you a quote from Gramsci. He said, "The Western world has been thoroughly saturated with Christianity for 2,000 years. Any country grounded in Judeo-Christian values cannot therefore be overthrown until the roots are cut. But to cut the roots, to change the culture, a long march through the institutions is necessary. Only then will power fall into our laps like ripened fruit." So number one, he said, you got to get rid of Christianity. All of this pushing Christianity out of the public squares and start to connect now. And then number 2, he said that the family unit is the building block of any society. So we've got to get rid of the family unit. And they go to work on it. So 72 genders. So if you see Nancy Pelosi stand up and say one of these really weird things, like 72 genders are normal.
Yeah.
Ask yourself one more question, and it will all, through that prism, it will all begin to make sense. If we did that, would that help to deteriorate the family unit? The point of 72 genders is you don't need a man and a woman. You could have a man and a man, you could have just a woman, you could have 2 women. The family unit is unnecessary. The community, it takes a community. Remember Hillary Clinton with "it takes a community"? That's what that was all about, is to get rid of the family unit and to stabilize our country. So to fast forward and go through this, is that they created this thing called cultural Marxism, and then they started teaching our kids in college all of this nonsense. And you know what? A lot of them believe it. So think about it. When you got trouble with college-educated suburban women, guess what? Those are the people that were sitting in these classes listening to Herbert Marcuse talk about the destruction of Western society. Let me read you one quote from Marcuse to give you a feel for who this guy is.
Sure.
"The West is guilty of genocidal crimes against every civilization and culture it has encountered. American and Western civilization are the world's greatest repositories for racism, sexism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, fascism, and Nazism. American society is oppressive, evil, and undeserving of loyalty." That's what they're teaching our kids. So when you say, well, they're teaching our kids to hate America. This whole business of racism, there you go. Where did they come up with this tack? Now, here's the beauty. And I'll finish up the cultural Marxism part and turn it over to Mallory. But here's the beauty of cultural Marxism and where they went with this. In the regime that Marx laid out, there was the oppressed and the oppressor. And the oppressor, in his view, were the capitalists. They had all the money and they abused the workers and didn't pay them fully for the effort that they put in. And that's what causes every problem in society. Another thing happened too is that Marxism didn't ever catch on. and you look at what Stalin had to do and what Mao had to do to murder.
Every time socialism has been tried, it has failed on its face.
Exactly. And they had to use violence and force. Remember, the ends justify the means to make it happen. It's just a real problem. But where they needed to go with this is to turn it into something else to make it successful. And what they decided was, well, what if we came up with identity groups? What if we did this based on race and gender and sexual preference? Then we could have all these different groups, and they're all oppressed. So it's not just, the workers, it's all of these different groups. They're all oppressed. And we, of course, we need to point that out to them in their best interest. They need to know they're being oppressed and abused. Once they know about this, they can fight back. But what it does for them is it puts Marxism on steroids. You got all these other groups. And then here's just an amazing offshoot of that, is that now a guy like Colin Kaepernick, who's a multimillionaire. If it was Marx, that guy, he's the oppressor. He's in the oppressor group. But in this regime with identity politics,
a millionaire off the backs of Chinese children sewing up shoes.
Right. And he's got Nike logos all over his body, talking about slavery, which 600,000 of us in America died to stop 250 years ago. We haven't had slaves for over 2 centuries, but somehow or another, we're all supposed to be rah-rah about a totally slave culture in China. And Colin Kaepernick is going to lead this with Nike logos all over his body, condemning slavery. The nonsense just never stops,
You know what? And that's kind of, we need to break through and make sure that everybody understands that that it is nonsense. Come on, this guy is a multimillionaire. He's not oppressed, and he's.
But he has a Muslim girlfriend. That's when this all started, when he got mixed up with this girl.
Well, yeah, I don't know. All I know is that he has no reason to be complaining. He is the product of the American dream.
Right.
And to turn on the United States after everything that's been given to him here.
Yeah.
It's unconscionable. But
then, the thing that we're up against here with the Marxists and their insidious infiltration of everything is their main goal, their main thing that you have to keep a very clear picture of is mainly just to create chaos. The basic move is to create chaos. And the 72 genders and the having it all mixed up over who's the slave country and who isn't a slave, all of these things, and have everybody fighting with each other about all of these various things, because it is based on the old divide and conquer model. So the Marxists are very scientific about this. They're very shrewd, and they've just figured out a way to splinter us into 80 million groups all fighting with each other.
Exactly. And then introduce chaos, as Mallory points out, and fear. That's what COVID-19 is.
Yeah.
Fear.
Oh, yeah.
And the end game is, if you make them very afraid, you can get them to change. They will settle for less. And maybe that less is,
right.
Well, you know what? The Constitution caused all these problems. And if that's the case, just take it away and, we'll do whatever you say. Just make it stop. That's the tactic. That's what they do.
Right, right.
Well, man much smarter than myself once said chaos is a ladder. So
there you go. It's a way to get people to settle for less. A long time ago, and I got to put in a plug for this guy, because I lost faith in Glenn Beck when he went a little nuts on Trump. Well, he's apologized. He's back. But 15 years ago, on that show that he had on Fox, he talked about top down, bottom up, inside out. What that means is the top and the bottom are connected. The top is driving the chaos at the bottom. They've hired those folks in essence. And then they squeeze the middle until they squeeze them out of the current system and put them in the replacement system.
Because the whole point is to destroy the bourgeoisie. You see, you cannot invade a capitalist Judeo-Christian country unless you first of all smash the family, and you have to create a situation where you've got to get rid of religion and the family. Those are the two most important things that you have to do. And this is what they've attacked. Now, when my sister got involved as a Marxist feminist, I'm a member of the David Horowitz Freedom Center, and in all of our meetings for over 30 years, I've been chasing David across ballrooms, saying to him, listen, it's the women's studies classes. You can fight Marxism all you want. You can carry on about this all you want. But what you don't understand, there is this sneaky, invisible invasion going on, and it's the women. It's the women. I'm telling you, David, you must look at the women. Oh yeah, but and you guys all think that it's about the economics, it's about the politics, who's bombing Syria, all this stuff. No, no, no. It was always all about the women. The women were quietly organizing. Now, my sister wrote this book, Sexual Politics, and she got involved in instituting the National Organization of Women. And she got involved with all those people, Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem and Flo Kennedy and Angela Davis and all of these people. And she got involved in this thing, and they created the National Organization for Women, and they made my sister Kate the head of the education committee. So the minute she was, and this is 1969, the minute she was head of the education committee, is what she did is she packed her suitcases and she started trudging all over the United States. And she went to every college and university from 1970 to 1975, around there, and instituted women's studies classes. Now, these sound so innocuous. Nobody's going to be threatened by this. Nobody even knew what the heck it was. And people, you're sitting there looking at the list of classes your child can take. Your daughter's going to go to college next September, and you're looking at all of the classes, and you see women's studies, and you think, oh, good. Oh, honey, that's good. Maybe you should take women's studies. And they think that this is some lovely thing about being women in society or something. But actually what it was a class that required two required books by my sister. This is how Marxists always get rich, like Bernie with all of his houses. And this is how Marxists get rich. She insisted on two of her books as required reading in every college and university in America, and started these women's studies classes. Now, when you look into what women's studies classes are, what it really is, it's Marxism 101. It's a primer on Marxism. And you have to, what I started to say before is the most important thing they have to do is, in a Judeo-Christian culture, is to get rid of the bourgeoisie. You can't have a Marxist takeover without an enormous proletariat. Well, we didn't have any real proletariat in America. We barely had a proletariat. We had a working class, but they were all conservative. So you had to create an enormous proletariat in America. So they took over all the educational system. They took over all of that part of the country, and they've been educating our children for 50 years. We haven't been, they have been, the Marxists have been.
They've been getting rich off of boring our children in class. So,
right. And now we've got 40 and 50-year-olds now who were educated during that period. These are middle-aged, almost, they're coming into middle age. And now they believe all these things about the 72 genders and the whole thing, the working class. They don't understand that everybody's been dumbed down with the terrible education. They've never been taught anything they're supposed to be taught in school. It's all about politics and intersectionality and all that stuff and critical race theory. And that's all they're teaching now. And they mix it with mathematics. They mix it with, now they're trying to tell the kids 2 + 2 = 5, because you can't accept all these things that old dead white men have created. So this is what's really going on. This has been a stealth invasion. And all the time I was in this organization, the National Organization, the David Horowitz Freedom Center, I kept standing up constantly in meeting rooms and saying, you've got to look at don't send your kids to college, number one. It's an indoctrination center for Marxism. And number two, you've got to look at the women. You must look at the women. And they're all thinking, oh, that's the women. That's nothing to do with politics. That's nothing to do with world affairs, current, and they don't understand that they twisted every single woman in America into a Marxist who is an abortionist, who's into killing every baby in sight. And their whole thing, you know, in college, a boy's got to get laid, right? I mean, what are boys looking for when they're 19, 20 years old? They're looking for some girl that they can, you know, and so it got to be, because the men didn't like abortion, but it got to be the pillow talk in college. And then these new mix, remember when they mixed the dorms? That was a big move by the commies.
Guys will believe anything to get in a woman's bed.
Right, anything to get. So she's on the pillow saying, hey, if I get pregnant here, I've got to be able to kill this child. I'm sorry, I'm going to kill this baby if I get pregnant. And the guys all acquiesced. So the men all acquiesced. And now all these men have become unknown. They don't know they're Marxists. They don't know their wife has indoctrinated them into Marxism. And this is what's going on in the country right now. This is it. The women took over in these classes.
Tell them what your sister Kate did when she started taking over the feminist movement, how she taught those people to change everything.
Okay, here, this is so seminal. This is so key. When I was staying with her in 1969 in New York City, I ran to her for sanctuary because I was in big trouble in my life. And she said, come on to New York, I'll get you all started. She was getting famous, you know. They put her on the cover of Time magazine. I mean, it was big. And she said, I know everybody in town. I'll get you started in New York. So she started taking me to these meetings at this apartment in Greenwich Village. Her friend's name was Lila Karp, and they would all sit around a big, long oval table. There'd be anywhere from 12 to 14 women. And they had these weekly meetings. It was called consciousness raising, which is what Mao was doing in China with all the villages where the people had to get up and confess and say what terrible citizens they were, and they loved Mao and they wanted communism. So now these women are doing this in New York City. These are all very educated women from Bryn Mawr, Vassar, you know, all of Smith, all of the best colleges at the time. They are now graduates and they are out in the world and they're starting the National Organization for Women.
And I don't want to interrupt you or anything, but we have 1 minute left, so I want to make sure that you guys can plug.
Oh my
what
God!
the solution is.
Oh my God! Okay, so they would start every meeting this way. The chairwoman would say, "Why are we here today?" The chairwoman asked. "To make revolution," they answered. "What kind of revolution?" She replied. "The cultural revolution," they chanted. "And how do we make a cultural revolution?" she demanded. "By destroying the American family," they answered. "And how do we destroy the family?" she came back. "By destroying the American patriarch," they cried exuberantly. "And how do we destroy the American patriarch?" she probed. "By taking away his power." "How do we do that?" "By destroying monogamy," they shouted. "And how do we destroy monogamy?" Their answer left me breathless. By promoting, this is women, good, clean, American, upper class, educated women, by promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, abortion, and homosexuality, they yelled. Was I on planet Earth? These were fine, young, educated American women. One of them,
Okay, everyone, we're back. We had a little bit of a problem here getting kicked out, but we're back. So Mallory, if you could go, you got cut off a little bit there. Can you tell us about the taboos? Because that's right where you were cut off there.
Well, I was reading that litany that they did. That was actually the Church of Marxism of the left. You know, they're borrowing. They love to borrow things from religion because they see how rituals and repetition and all of that works. So their upshot of this, once they would do their chant of destroying the family and the patriarchy, which was so important, and promoting these 5 things. These are all pretty much taboos, or they're connected to, you know, things that society frowns upon. So they would then fall into their discussion. And the discussion was always about, how are we going to spread this movement? How are we going to Marxify America? And people have to keep this word Marx in the forefront, because people keep trying to say that it's anachronistic. It's an anachronism. It's over. It's not. They took down the Berlin Wall. There's no, and this is just another one of their blinds. You know, they love to fool everybody and create new vocabulary and all of this sort of thing. So they would fall into discussing how, just the way we are now, how are we going to spread our movement? So their means was, and these are like 14 very influential but young, highly educated, clean-cut Judeo-Christian women. And their way of creating this movement, which they've now achieved in 50 years, is to invade every institution in America, to invade the media, to invade all the colleges and universities, to infiltrate. Infiltrate was what they used. We will spread out and we will infiltrate everything. The judiciaries, the legislatures, the executive branches of all government, the PTAs, the library system. I was so the library system. Oh yes, the library system they had to take over. Absolutely everything. You know, the history room at the New York Public Library, which was the most gorgeous room that almost ever existed in the world. The history room in the New York Public Library was a sanctuary. It was an outrageously spectacular place. Doesn't even exist anymore. The history room at the New York Public Library. This is what they've done. Killing history is a big part of their thing. That's why they won't teach civics in the schools anymore. They won't teach history. They don't want people to know anything about how our government is supposed to run. And so the taboos were very important. Bestiality, homosexuality, polygamy, cannibalism. It doesn't matter what the taboo was. It doesn't matter how awful it was. It had to be erased. All things are acceptable now. Everything that any individual decides he's going to do to make himself happy is acceptable.
And prostitution is part of that, right?
Oh, prostitution. They wanted to unionize prostitution. They wanted, this is why I have such a problem with the libertarians. These people are really, it's a dangerous thing to become a libertarian. A lot of conservatives do it. This is a nonsense thing. It is about anarchy. We can't have anarchy. I mean, the human race has decided these things over and over again, over century after century after century. Anarchy is not good, people. It's not good. Antifa is not a good thing. You have to have law and order. Law and order is why everybody ran to America. We had Matt Dillon, and we had all these fantastic people who tamed the West, who brought law and order to America. That's the reason this country works. And they want to destroy law and order. There shouldn't be law and order. No police. What a crazy idea. No police.
No police, don't need ICE, just open the borders. And you can see where they really want to go. And we've talked about this, is they want globalism. They want globalism. Why do the Marxists want globalism? Because it creates chaos and we will destroy our society through that invasion, really.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's, Winston Churchill said, wait a second. Whoops. Oh my gosh, I fell off my chair.
Mallory.
I'm okay.
Are you fine?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just backing up in my chair and I knocked it over, but I wanted to find this article of mine. Here it is. Here it is. There are a couple of things. You guys go on and continue discussing, and I'm going to find
Rick,
something.
you wanted to talk about, you said the color movement?
The color revolution. So
revolution.
Here's something people need to be aware of. And I don't think that most people are, and that's part of our mission, is to get the word out about this. But we are in the middle of a color revolution. So the first question is, well, what's a color revolution, and why is that it's happening here? There was a group called the Transition Integrity Project, and this was reported on, and actually they made a big splash in the media by running 4 scenarios. Their whole purpose was to undermine Trump, right? And to see that he leaves office. So they run 4 scenarios. One scenario, Biden wins in a landslide and everything's okay. The other 3 scenarios, there's going to be unrest, there's violence, riots in the street if Trump is in that position, and they're probably going to have to send the military in to take him out of there. This was the beginning of the color revolution. Let me read you something about color revolution, or a description. It's sowing doubt about the democratic legitimacy of a target, Donald Trump in this case, and coupling it with calls for massive, mostly peaceful protests. Now, that's a term of art. What that means is, if you're a color revolution expert, this is what you work with. People have to believe that this is mostly
one guy's
peaceful.
burning things down and the other two.
Yeah, you remember that correspondent where he's got the buildings just inflamed behind him and he's standing there. Well, it's there's been some fires, but it's mostly peaceful. It was critical that it was accepted as mostly peaceful. That is part of the color revolution regime. What they do is they put on a constant barrage of peaceful protests, mass demonstrations, civil disobedience, contested legitimacy of elections, and they leverage the media for favorable coverage, especially in Western media. They've done this all over the world. The last one was Ukraine. It was called an Orange Revolution. Now, let me tell you something.
My time in Afghanistan was mostly peaceful.
What? Yeah, right.
Ukraine, it was mostly peaceful. The reason it has to be mostly peaceful is that when the government lashes back with either police or military, then they're going to call them out as a tyrant, a fascist, that it's uncalled for. These were mostly peaceful protesters. They didn't deserve this. That's the
this is the kind of thing that they specialize in. They say we're being very peaceful as they're setting fire to buildings. We are peaceful people. It's like right now, Biden is bombing Syria. I'm saying, wait a minute. Aren't these the pacifists? Aren't these the people who said that Trump would be a warmonger? And the minute he's in office, he's bombing Syria again. I mean, these people are the biggest liars who ever lived. People have to understand that if the person they're talking to is on the left, and I'm speaking as an ex-leftist activist, if the person you're speaking to on the left, if their lips are moving, they are lying. Every single thing that the left says is a lie. You have to understand that.
Let me develop this at Zoom, kick us off again. What do you think is the solution?
I think what we've got to do, we got to push back against these guys. They organized this. This is a left-wing takeover attempt. And the way to stop it, if people know what these guys are up to and know what they're doing, it won't work. Years ago, Glenn talked about top down, bottom up, inside out.
Right.
The top is controlling the bottom to force the middle out, you, the average citizen. So you'll leave that society and willingly accept less and move into their manufactured solution. So,
yeah, because people get desperate. They get desperate and then they'll obey anybody. Like right now, the American people are obeying the World Health Organization. This is preposterous. They are run by China. So actually, China is running America now. And now they're about to double mask us through 2022. And the American people just bow their heads, bare their necks for the axe, and march on in great obedience.
We've got to push back. So what Giant Slayers is going to do to help put an end to this is, one, we need to push back against our own politicians. We've got too many rhinos that are neocons, that are part of the old order. They're not America first. We don't need them anymore. We've got to remove the Democrats. We've got to take back the House in 2022 and hopefully add in the Senate. And then the last thing is state and local election integrity. So they're not investigating, and they're not going to unless we dial those guys up and let them know that we're watching, and they need to take action. They need to pass laws so this can never be done again. But they also need to insist on investigation so we find out, what happened here. This business of the media saying, and Twitter banning and censoring everybody because you can't talk about the election fraud at all. Well, hang on a minute here. You never investigated this, and you won't allow us to go look at the machines. I mean, come on, seriously.
Well, but they will never do anything that's reasonable. You cannot ask a maniac who's kidnapped you and is threatening to cut off your head to be polite and to be nice to you. They're not going to do any of these things, What people have to understand is that the attack is on two things in general. The attack is on personal sovereignty, the liberty of the single individual human being, and the attack on the sovereignty of a nation. If anything that's happening, it is attack on the sovereignty of America, you're with the wrong crowd. These are bad people. And if they're trying to destroy your sovereignty as a human individual, they are bad people, very bad people, because the Second Amendment is designed to protect vile speech. The whole purpose is they're not going to make an amendment to protect nice speech that everybody likes. The purpose of the amendment is to protect speech, no matter how vile. The more vile, the more protected. And that's the basis of the Second Amendment.
So where can people connect with you two to work towards a solution?
They can look me up personally on Twitter. It's at Politic with a K, POLITICK _Rick. And then the organization is Giant Slayers. There's no A in the Slayers, so it's GIANTSLYERS. And for only $65,000, Twitter will give me the handle with the A in it. So we're going to go at it a different way. I'm going to have my attorneys work on this, but it's a little bit longer term project. So you can connect with us there. You know what? The average person can make a huge difference. You follow that Giant Slayers account, and we're going to be contacting you and asking you if there are ways that you would like to be involved and help us do this. We've got to take our country back. We have to say something.
Okay, so you can contact me at MalloryMillet.com, MalloryMillet, MalloryMillet.com. I've got a website there, and I'm also an advisor to the Hosea Initiative, which has a fact check booklet. If you go to info at Hosea, HOSEA, the number 4, and then YOU.org. Hosea at info at Hosea4U.org, and the 4 is a 4, and the U is YOU. Info at Hosea4U.org, and you can buy these fact check booklets by contacting them. You can get 200 booklets in a case for $440. And if you get a lot of people together, you can get a discount on all of that. But this sums up a lot of what I'm talking about, is this little booklet you can get through Hosea Initiative.
Well, I thank you both for joining us. You know, it was a very interesting discussion. You guys definitely have a lot of, well, especially in Mallory's case, a lot of personal interest vested in this. And yeah, I know on the network, we would probably like to have you guys back in probably a different form, maybe to ask some more questions. And I really thank you for coming on our show today.
Yeah, and look up Rick's Giant Slayers thing, because that's Giant Slayers, because that's something that's getting very active, and Rick is 100% behind.
Mallory and I are together on this, fighting Marxism, and the David Horowitz Freedom Center, she's director, has been fighting this battle for the longest time. David he's a genius. He's written over 300 books.
Oh, he's so brilliant.
Marxism. There's nobody who is a greater expert than he is. So,
but another thing I want to say is people have to stop talking about progressivism, liberalism, the Democrats. It's Marxism. Our enemy is the Marxist movement. And Karl Marx, who never worked a day in his life, claims to be the champion of the workers. The man never worked for 1 penny in his entire life. But these people are the enemy, the Marxists, not the liberals, not the left, not the progressives. Forget these nice names. It's Marxism.
Did you know Karl Marx was a racist?
Oh, yeah.
I am not surprised.
And a misogynist.
All of this, you know.
Before they kick us off, I do want to thank you all. You know, thank you for your time today. Would love to have you guys back. And for all the fans out there, I want to remind you, you can go to www.nrnplus.com/VN. You can subscribe to Veteran Nation. You can subscribe to all the other shows here on New Right Network. Again, it's $79.95 for the year, $9.95 for the month, and you'll get access to a lot of great content from independent journalists. Rick, Mallory, thank you so much for joining us today. And
thank you. You're both great guys. Thanks a lot, both of
Our
you.
pleasure. Thanks for having us, and we're chomping at the bit. Whenever you're ready to do the Q&A, we'll be there.
Okay.
Bring
sounds
back
good.
America.
There you
All
go.
right. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for being worth serving.